We're going to start this topic on morality with a short little discussion on what is universals, because we're going to have to talk about, is morality something we're born with, or is it something that we develop in our cultures? So, secularization theory is actually this interesting idea. It's not necessarily theory so much as a historical trend. Religion has been on the decline for many, many years, and in many ways, as we'll discover as we go through this topic, a belief in God or some higher being often becomes a defining principle or part of people's moral belief system. And to the degree that society as a whole has been secularizing, which is a fancy word for moving away from the church, then we're losing our moral guidepost. And where is it going to come from? Okay, so it's kind of a it's a truth. It's not. I don't necessarily think it's a theory. It's just a historical statement. A shift away from the church and more towards science is often what it is. Though there is a big backlash against that in more recent years. And so this is just a real fundamental change in our moral structure. Okay. So now we kind of touched on this stuff in topic one, but it's a good time to bring it back. This notion of universalism. And this is the idea that humans all over the planet are fundamentally the same, and that there is one truth. And so any kind of variability that you might see when you go across culture is trivial. It's just really superficial, is of absolutely no meaning. Okay. And we find that in some ways, like languages, as we've talked earlier, this is a truth that there is this fundamental universal, and on top is superficial. But then there are others that say, to some extreme, especially with a secularist beliefs, that there are as many truths as there are people on the planet. Everybody's truth is equally valid, something of this nature. And it's a little bit far-fetched, but I mean, the implication is there's no such thing as wrong because in somebody's belief system, they're right. They believe it, and so therefore it's true. This is political correctness to the extreme. It is, in some kind of a way, the polar opposite of more of a universal way of thinking. And so I'm not necessarily going to swing in this direction. Instead, at least for me, when I do my moral reasoning, I split the difference. I believe that there are absolutely certain parts of moral reasoning that are universal. Thou shalt not kill. That's just a standard that has been written into every legal system since the beginning of human beings. Okay? And so clearly there's some universal basis to morality, but at the same time, there is a lot of cultural variability in, say, for example, who is acceptable to marry? Should you marry your cousin? Some societies say, ew, no. And some are like, yeah, of course you do. So clearly there's an awful lot of cultural relativity when it comes to moral reasoning. So I tend to be more towards the end of culturally relativistic thinking on moral reasoning. But I am open to certain aspects of moral reasoning being universal. So C.S. Lewis proposed was perhaps one of well, perhaps the most famous example of a person who proposed universal morality. And so he argued this natural law, or this law that we all know. And C.S. Lewis did it much better than I could ever possibly do to explain this. But he says, we all inside of us know right from wrong. Now, God has given you free will. You have the choice whether or not you want to follow this sense of right and wrong, but we all have it. And when you move away from God's law or this natural law of sorts, then you'll feel guilt. And that's your indication that you're doing something wrong. Okay? And so he argues that this is a universal internal guidance system that we all have, but yet we're allowed to ignore, and many people do choose to ignore. I don't know. It's, you know, I, I can see it. I can see it. There are some cultures that might perhaps use things such as honor killings. And they might justify and say, oh, it's our cultural system, and you can't judge us on honor killings. I mean, it's wrong to kill your daughter. Period. There is no I cannot believe in any planet of this world. And so I am not necessarily jumping away from C.S. Lewis here because I truly do believe that even somebody in a culture that says honor killings are our cultural practice, you can't judge us. You kill your daughter, you're going to feel guilty as shit for the rest of your life. So I don't believe that you can drop culture on top of certain aspects of moral reasoning. And then finally, we can talk about universalism, relativism. But a different kind of perspective is evolutionism. And it's kind of a play on both of these too, because the idea is every human being, when they're born with potential belief systems, whether they be moral systems or whatnot. And the culture and environment that one grows up in will determine which aspects of morality will in fact emerge and develop. Okay? And so here's this simple example of the Mueller-Lyer illusion. It's not morality, but it's the same basic idea, is that inside of each and every one of us, every human being when they're born, has a potential to be fooled by this illusion. But only people that grow up in cultures that have interior walls with these kinds of angles will in fact evolve to fall for it. You find people that grow up inside of in forests or something like that, and they don't fall for this illusion. And so the idea is we all have potentials, and which ones will emerge or evolve from us depends upon the exact context that we grow up in.